In July of 2013, 40-year-old Tracey Connelly was brutally murdered in Melbourne's beachside suburb of St Kilda, and the crime remains unsolved. Some believe the circumstances of Tracey's life have contributed to a lack of interest in the case, or at the very least, to a sense of inevitability about Tracey's fate. Tracey was a sex worker, living and working in a van parked on Greaves Street, the hub of St Kilda's street sex trade. But Tracey was many other things too: a mother, a sister, a daughter, a friend, and a partner. Tracey's sister Jean joins us on Australian True Crime to talk about the sister she knew and about the $1 million reward that's been posted for information leading to an arrest in the case. This is Australian True Crime. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is created, the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. And a warning, this episode of the podcast contains graphic descriptions of violence.
I was 10. My brothers were like 11 and 12 when Tracey was born. So she was the real baby in the family.
Oh.
Yeah, Mum had gotten remarried. And then they had her, and my nan was living with us. So it was a packed house.
And there's a lot of assumptions about the families of sex workers as well.
Yeah.
That these women must all come from terrible upbringings, terrible homes, families who don't care about them. That wasn't the case. Tell us about that.
No. So we're a born and bred Catholic family.
Yeah, same.
Mum was a teacher. My stepdad worked in the government, all of that. So, yeah, we were always in good Catholic schools and she was just a really good kid. She was a good student, artistic, really artistic. Brilliant sense of humour. Our family's known for its dry humour, and she outdid us every time. She could. No, she was. She was a funny bugger. And taking the mickey out, impersonating somebody, that was one of her better qualities, and she could do it. She could take off anybody, whether it was somebody on the TV or, just anybody. And, of course, back then, we didn't watch much TV and all that. You were lucky to see bloody cartoons on the Saturday morning. So you kind of did your own, do our own thing and just be idiots. We'd all talk in funny voices. We'd be different people. We'd be monkeys sometimes, jumping all over Mum's kitchen while she's trying to cook. Like, just any form of harassment, I think, that we could do, we would do. So she grew up as a real baby. And my nana, she was absolutely in love with Tracey. Absolutely. Like, that was her whole sun, moon, world, stars, like everything was about Tracey. So Tracey was coddled like you wouldn't believe. Just a really sweet kid, very gentle. Like, she never talked like a sailor. I'm the one that does that. But, she always talked nicely, never had bad things, just really super gentle kid, water baby. She was an absolute water baby. We put in a swimming pool at one of the houses, and oh my gosh, I think that was one more of her happiest times, was just summer holidays, being in that swimming pool every day. She'd get brown as a berry, loved being in the water. That was her thing, I think.
It's funny because I'm thinking about descriptions I've read of Tracey from women that she worked with, and they've quite similar to the way you've described her.
Yeah.
So, as an adult towards the end of her life, they always say funny, sweet, kind.
Not a bad bone in her body. She was born that way, died that way, not a bad bone in her body. I don't care what anybody says. You'd never convince me of it. That wasn't her personality. Her dad was a little bit podgy when he was young, and so Tracey, sadly, was a little bit podgy too, because her nan feeding her up all the time and all that. No, nan did. She was bad. She'd feed her, and she was, she was a big girl anyway. She was going to be, because her dad's 6'4" or something, granddad's like 6 foot, so she took after that side, the Connelly side. So by the time she was going to primary school, she would have been about 40 pound overweight, 40, 50 pound. Pretty sure she had a lot of bullying. She was quiet. She got into alternative music and Boy George and all that, so she had the hair. And we were a tight little group in our family. So she had 2 cousins that were pretty much the same age, so they really hung out a lot. She didn't really have a lot of school friends. She had friends within the family, and then another friend of ours, she had a daughter about the same age, so they all kind of grew up in their little group.
But like a lot of kids, I have two 15-year-olds as we speak. So I know how challenging, I'll say, teenagers can be and how they can decide to rebel no matter if you give them anything to rebel against or not. They'll find something.
Yep. I mean, she went around the world. Mum took her 2 or 3 overseas trips, like to England, Canada. Yeah, they went for like 3 months. And I wish she had stayed in England. I think England was the perfect place for her. She blossomed. Because like she was going through puberty and all the pimples and all of that gangly stuff. She went there for 3 months and her skin cleared. She just changed. It was like night and day.
Wow.
And I remember talking to her, when she got back, and I was like, how would you think? And she's like, yeah, I loved it. I said, you should go. Because we've got like aunts and uncles. My mum's family's over there. I said, why don't you go for a year? Be a bloody student over there. Mum and that were all for it. They're like, yeah, go study, go, I don't know why she didn't go. I think she was looking for her place all her life. Because like I said, we were 10 years older. So, by the time she's 6, I'm 16, I'm moving out of home. My brothers moved out, you know what I mean? So, and we had one brother was into music, one was into sports. I had my horses. So we all had our established things that were ours. And I tried to teach her how to ride, and no, she's the city mouse and I'm the country mouse. She was definitely not a country kid.
It's hard as a parent when your kid is struggling with all of these issues, everything that we've discussed already, and when you've got a kid who has no direction, so you don't really know how to support them. And I think probably for your mum, having the 3 older kids who had direction, were off doing their thing, and then to have Tracey kind of not finding a place to fit in and rebelling a bit, wasn't she, by the time she was sort of mid-teens?
By the time she hit 14, she was going to nightclubs or wanting to just run with the alternative crowd. She got me into goth stuff and all that. And so, she started running out. And I mean, we all did that, but we were a bit sneakier. Tracey was just straight up, I'm going. No, trust me, we all did it, and we all lied about it, but except for Tracey. No, she was just like, no, I'm going. I mean, Nan got really sick. Tracey went there for the weekend. I went to pick her up, and we ended up bringing Nana home because Nana was really sick. This is right before everything went haywire. Brought Nan home, found out she had like 10 weeks. She had cancer really bad. So they gave us 10 weeks. We brought her home. We looked after her. Tracey was kind of around, but she didn't handle it too good. She come and sort of help, but she didn't help. She just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't know where she was, to be honest, because Mum and that, we were all working. We were taking shit. It was crazy. And then, of course, when Nan died, that was one of the last times we saw her. She came to the funeral. That was it. She was gone. She just took off.
God.
I really think that was a breaking point for her. So within 18 months, we lost my grandmother. Then we lost my brother 6 months later. Then we lost my niece 6 months later. She was stillborn. So within 18 months, we had 3, and of course, Rick was like, he was the favorite brother, blah, blah, blah. So she didn't come to Rick's funeral. She knew about it. And like I said, so between Nana, I think, and Rick, it's just too much for her. And then she went to a halfway house. And back in those days, the government, in their wisdom, decided to give all these kids, it was like $100 a week or $100 a month, for kids who were being abused and things like that. So she went to a halfway house, told them that she'd been abused, that Mum and Brian were beating on her and whatever. Yeah, she was pretty good with the stories. She had to do what she had to do. But that's where she went massive. I guess that was her first love. And he was like 2 years older. And he'd come from Tassie, so he knew the ropes. And he was already an addict. He introduced her to it and all that. He was already selling himself at that point. He was already in sex work. And I guess that's where it just rolled on.
So they're both underage though, right? So even though he's 2 years older, he's only about 16 or 17 or something.
He would have been, just on 17, yep.
And when you say using drugs, you mean heroin specifically?
Yes.
From the beginning?
Yep. And she went straight on heroin. There was no gateway and all that. No, she just went straight. I guess she tried it. She liked it.
Also, love does that. Unfortunately, you see a lot of people, it begins with a relationship.
Yes. Yeah. And I would assume, from what I've read of heroin, that takes away the pain. And for her, that's a perfect out,
Yeah. But unfortunately, it's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I happened to come across a little book once, years ago. It was one of her little notebooks, and just reading like what she did. It was so you could just read like, did this, that, got 20, 40, 60, boom, bought a half, $75. 20, 40, 60, boom, 75. And like all in the one day. And that was an eye opener to see how many times a day you medicate, for want of a better word. I thought, just once in a while. No, it's a continuous, it's a whole cycle.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah, really. Yes, exactly. And you become working for it. Addiction, it steals a person. So we tried. And I mean, this is back in the 80s, right? So no internet. We're just a normal, regular Catholic family, have no clue. We've never dealt with this, like it just didn't happen, So we're just deer in headlights, had no idea what to do, who to turn to. There really wasn't a lot then anyway, I don't think. There wasn't a lot of mental health and that. It wasn't an issue. Addiction wasn't even on the radar, I don't think, for anybody.
No. And I don't know who you would turn to. I mean, now I'm sure we both know of, I don't know, places you'd go looking for or whatever. But back then.
Exactly. We didn't know. We found out they were living in South Melbourne later. So that first year, we really didn't know where she was or what she was doing. They got like a government flat out there. So I guess that's why they moved out there, but that's when she was pregnant with Billy. And that
she fell pregnant with Matthew.
Yep. And in between that time, we had social workers, use that word really lightly. I hate to say it. I know there's very good ones out there, but these two were they came to the house and like saying, I'll never forget it. Mum and I were there and we were asking like, what's going on? And they were saying, well, she gets money from the government. There's been alleged abuse, blah, blah. And we're just sitting there horrified,
Yeah.
like what? And they're like, well, she can't come home until the alleged abuse is looked at and this and that, and she's fine, but we can't tell you where she is and, la, 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 and what she's doing. She has rights, all of this. And I said, look, well, what if I just drove up and grabbed her? Can't I just she's addicted. We knew at this point. I said, yeah, I know she's addicted. I said, she needs to go cold turkey. And they turned around and said, well, now you said that. If you do go and do it against her, well, I was going to get in trouble.
Yeah, you'll get done for kidnapping her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't imagine the helplessness of knowing what's sensible, what's obviously the right thing to do, which is to go and get her, and then have people saying, well, you can't because telling you she's fine when she's a sex worker to feed a drug addiction, she's a teenager.
Exactly. Everything you said is what we said to them.
Yeah.
We're just like, well, what do we do? And they said, well, it's up to her. And of course, the alleged abuse, she's put it on paper. So, and I said, look, she'll tell you straight up that that's just lies. Like, she's just doing it to stay away and she's having a fun time and you're giving her the money to do it. Like, no. And they were like, well, no, she has said it. So, she gets counselling. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So, yeah, at that point, we kind of, what do you do? There was no other point to go to be honest.
I'm sure they told you or people told you, or maybe this is just a new way of thinking, but, you've got to be careful not to push her away. So just wait and just be ready if she comes home. And
definitely, she's got to want it.
Yeah.
I said, well, if she's not thinking clearly, she's not in the right mind to want it.
Yeah.
And she's a minor. I said, she's 16. Like, no, look at the house we're living in. Like, she's had everything. She had a great life like we all did.
What was the turning point then? I mean, did she at some point go, oh, God, okay, this has been an experience, but I'm over it?
Never.
Oh.
Never. Their chosen line of work, I don't care what it is. Look, it's the oldest profession in the bloody world, isn't it, really? So, it is what it is. And she did it out of necessity. She didn't do it because she liked it. Yeah. She did out of addiction, which I think a lot of them do. So it's out of necessity more than, a want or a need.
I worked in the sex industry in the 90s as a receptionist in brothels. Certainly I find women who work on the street, it's generally a need. It's generally the least glamorous end of things, but also it's the end of things. And certainly in my day, in Tracey's day, before the internet, that was the way that you got to keep all your money, got to be in control of your life and not have to, follow rules or work for someone.
Yeah. I mean, I did talk to her about going and working, when they said, when they opened up the brothels and that, but she was addicted, so she couldn't. She said, I can't get the medicals. I mean, I hate it, but I get it. You're only doing it because of the addiction. So if you take the addiction away, you wouldn't be doing it. So then you're in the brothel. It's just, yeah, it's that whole cycle, isn't it? I really think she liked the outlet, the feeling that it took her away.
Of the drug?
Yep. It took the pain she was feeling. And then, of course, I would assume, and I think after Billy and all that, she was embarrassed. She was disappointed with herself. Definite. She had to be.
So Billy was her son, or is her son, who
Yes.
Was born out of this first pregnancy. But she cleaned up during pregnancy, didn't she?
No, because we go, gosh, bless my stepdad. He went all over Melbourne picking her up from police stations like Northcote and, Dandenong to Northcote. That's a long way. She worked literally till the day she had him, and then she got toxemia, where it poisons the blood when you're in labour. She about died having him. They had to infuse her, and she had all these tubes in her, and the blood basically poisons itself, poisons you, poisons the baby. So we about lost her at that point, but then 2 days later we picked her up in hospital and off she went.
Off she went with baby Billy.
Back South Melbourne. Yep. She and Matt went back to working straight away. Every week, Mum and that or I'd go, one of us would go, Mum especially, Mum and Brian, they would go literally every week. Mum would make up little things of food, like little containers. Oh, I don't know how many containers she went through, but she'd make little containers of food for Bill. All they had to do was put it in the microwave. That's all they had to do. She'd take clothes, nappies, all that sort of stuff. But we think that they sold it. Whatever we took as far as clothes, they sold it, because we never saw them in any of those clothes, And it didn't click to us till months later that that's probably what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because it was all brand new with the tags and everything like that. So, dollar's a dollar.
Yeah.
Things obviously were going south. I think she and Matthew got into it and they were fighting a lot and everything. And poor Bill, they used to leave him when they'd work. And so he'd cry all night long in the flats. And so I think what happened, the social workers got called in and they said, look, clean up your act or we're taking him. Well, we got a phone call one day that Matthew's running down some street in South Melbourne with the kid, middle of the night, like midnight, 1 o'clock. Matthew's running down. You got to come help me. So off we go. Don't know where he was. She didn't want to come home. Didn't know, blah, 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 take her back to the flat. And then we found out that he ran off to Tasmania with Billy.
Back to his parents?
Yes. So then of course, Tracey went over. They thought they were going to start a new life. That's not going to work. So she came back to Melbourne. He stayed there. We didn't know where Billy was. He wouldn't give Billy back. And then maybe 2 weeks later, he died December 93.
Matthew did?
Yes. He suicided.
Oh, God.
I know, right? And he was a nice kid. We liked Matthew. Same story. Had a good life. Smart. Super smart. They were as smart as each other.
Mm.
And I guess that's why they got along so well. But they were smart as each other, yeah. So he jumped off the bridge in Tasmania and his mum gave Billy to a family friend. Yeah. Then started 2 years of court battles. Mum had to fly to Tassie every other weekend to establish contact with Billy, because Bill was only I think it was like a year and a half, not even. He was still a weenie. So they had to establish to the courts that they were willing to do it, that they had, my brother had to go with my niece because they were similar age. So my brother would go and they'd all go for the weekend and take him out. And then we had the court case. And I remember I had to pick her up somewhere in South Melbourne. And I know she'd just done a trick or whatever you want to call it. She'd just been working and, golly, she rolled in that car and the smell. Love and death, but dear God, addiction is not a pretty, darling. I'll never, it's a smell you don't forget. And she was there and I was like, look, we got to get you cleaned up, But we were on a time constraint because she needed her next, it was like a 3-hour limit, I guess is what she told us. I got a 3-hour window.
Till I get sick.
Yeah, literally. So we jumped on the plane, flew to Tassie. I took her in the bathrooms and we washed her up a bit, and I had clothes for her, threw clothes on her, got her back into the courthouse. She told the judge what she wanted, which is her family to have him. She got off the chair. I drove her somewhere in Tasmania. She'd already found a hookup in Tasmania. Isn't that, I mean, no internet. Baffles
unbelievably
me.
resourceful. But also, I think you learn to you could spot a neighbourhood. I mean, when you're an addict, can't you? You can just see the signs. You can follow the clues.
Yep. So got money off Mum. I said, this is what it's going to take to get her back on the claim. I said, I can't fly back with her, She's got to get back. So, yeah, we went and got her medicine or whatever you want to call it. And she did whatever she needed to do, and I dropped off at the airport. And literally, that was the last time I saw her.
So you won, but baby Billy was one for the Connelly family, and he came home to Melbourne?
Oh, yes. And then from the time she had Billy till all this happened, till he was about one, like she would come to the house, we'd go pick her up for family gatherings and all of that. So it wasn't like they were out of family.
Yeah.
Her and Matthew, and they'd be off their rockers and heads falling in plates and all the fun stuff, looking for phone numbers in the yellow pages for 3 or 4 hours, but they were still there. Like, we never judged them. We never did. There was no reason to. They were very quiet, easygoing. They weren't loud, and they weren't crass about things. They still spoke. Like, when you could have a conversation, it was great.
I think that is a mark of heroin addicts, though, because I think these days there's so much more methamphetamine on the streets, and that creates the impression that drug addicts, in inverted commas, are scary, belligerent, jumping up and down.
All the twitchy stuff and all that. Like, they never had that. They were very mellow, and I guess that is the drug of choice that heroin does that, from what I gather. Because I talked to a couple of times and I just couldn't get over that it'd make her puke. I was like, we go to their flat in South Melbourne. It was just awful. They'd have their bags, their puke there. I'm just like, I just can't. Like, can't you find something better? She's like, no, this is it.
What you're describing is anyone who's ever known an addict, anyone who's ever been around an addict will be recognising the chaos that you're describing, that their lives become. It's like that frog that's placed into cold water that's slowly boiled. They don't realise it's chaos, do they? They're just like, what? When you say to them, this is crazy, they're like, oh, shut up. It's fine.
Exactly.
And now she's lost Matthew as well. This is an incredibly intense cycle of grief that she's been through. And she's lost Billy to an extent, even though she knows he's with you, with your mum.
Yeah, but she did lose him. And I think that had a lot to do with her, sort of not contacting us a whole lot when we had him. It would have to. It would have to be an embarrassment at some point. Like, what's wrong with me? I can't even look after my own kid. And she loved Billy. It's not that. She just didn't know what to do.
This is another function of addicts, is she's put herself in this place of shame. So she's shaming herself, no doubt, for the fact that she can't care for her baby, and then that's making her use.
Yeah. And Billy, I don't know, it wasn't like a syndrome thing or that, but he couldn't stop crying. Like, the first 6 months we had him, he would just be crying constantly. It was just tears and tears and tears and tears. And they said to us later on, it was just the trauma of a year of being alone. And he had abandonment issues, obviously, from that. Huge abandonment issues, huge. He didn't like the quiet, which understandably, if your parents are both runned off for a few hours.
Mm.
So he had a lot of issues initially, obviously, and of course he couldn't tell us. That was the worst part.
Yeah.
And there was no consoling him. He'd just sit there and just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry.
And as much as I just said earlier that, heroin addicts tend to be mellow, they're mellow until they need gear.
Right.
And then they're very irritable.
Yes.
And very short-tempered. And so I can imagine having a constant crying baby when you're worried about where your next $60 is coming from. It's hell.
Yeah. And I guess that's what brought the demise of her and Matthew. They just couldn't deal with it. And that's why he's running down the middle of South Melbourne, It's just crazy. After we brought Billy back, she came and saw him a couple of times. She just realised, like, the disappointment in her. I can't be a mum. Can't be an effective mum. I can't do this. My family's doing it. Like, how embarrassing. But that's where addiction is disgusting. It takes the person away, and addiction steps in and says, doesn't matter. you're going to go buy the drug. You have to do it, right?
So, and at some point now she's an adult, so everyone, you've got to stop driving around the streets looking for her and all that.
Right. And we tried reaching out. Oh, we wrote letters. We used to write letters, and they said we could send it to the South Melbourne Centrelink at the time, because she was on the dole or whatever payments they were giving her at that point. They wouldn't tell us where exactly she was, but they said, look, if you want to send a letter there, they'll pass it on to her. Whether she got them or not, we don't know. I doubt she ever did. But we did try that. Like, we tried so many avenues. And then she would ring. While Mum lived in that one house, we never changed the phone number. And we're pretty sure it was her, because the phone would ring, there'd be nobody on the other. Or it'd be quiet, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And then they'd hang up. So we kind of thought maybe that was her checking in, seeing if we're still there, obviously. And then sadly, though, when we decided to move up north, we couldn't tell her. There was no, way to tell her, to let her know. So maybe she felt when she called, like, this is it. When I think about it, like, my whole family's gone now. Where are they? Can't get a hold of them. So maybe she thought we just left her in the lurch. I don't know. It was never, ever, I want to make this really clear. It was never a case of anybody in our family saying, you're not good enough. No, nobody within the family ever judged her. We knew what she did. We might not have liked it, but we never judged her and said, you can't come to this, or you can't come to that, and excluded her because, well, you're an addict and you smell, or you're an addict and you're a sex worker. Like, never. Even when family would talk about her, aunts, uncles, whatever, because we have a big family, they'd just be like, how's she doing? Have you heard from her? And it'd be like, nope. And they'd be like, well, we're praying for her.
Yeah.
I know my parents for about, 10 or 15 years after that, easily, literally would say so many times, what did we do wrong? And I'm like, you didn't. I came to realize very early, I think that, like you said, it's their choice.
Mm. If you'd like to talk to someone about abuse that's taken place in your life, no matter how long ago it happened, your GP is always a good place to start. If that's not going to work for you, you can contact 1800-RESPECT on 1800-737-732 or via their website 1800respect.org.au. Or you can call Lifeline's 24-hour phone counselling service on 13 11 14. Tracey's life ended in absolutely the worst possible circumstances. So we know that by 2013, Tracey was living in a van that was usually parked in Grieve Street. For anyone outside of Melbourne, that is the street in St Kilda, possibly the most sort of famous, the hub of street sex work. In fact, she was parked across the road from a place called the Gatehouse, St Kilda Gatehouse, which is like an outreach centre for street workers.
Well, they became her family.
Yeah.
I mean, and thank goodness, like, we'll always be thankful as a family that in hindsight now we know that they were at least there for us.
Girls could spend time, or girls and boys could go in there, spend time in there, have a coffee, have a shower, relax, be safe. There were social workers and there were all those services there, but they were never pushed on them.
Right. They didn't judge.
She was 40 when she died, which is, I always forget she was 40 when she died, but not that 40's old. Obviously, I'm older than 40, but the photos, she's very youthful. She looks, half that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, one of the saddest things was when we got the news that Tracey had died, there was a picture of her, and I remember sitting next to my husband and I was like, I don't even know which one she is.
Oh, wow, really?
I guess she'd lost so much weight. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't think of her changing physically.
Well, actually, when you were saying earlier that, she was a bit chubby as a kid, or quite chubby, I thought, oh, God,
No, right?
The only thing I know of her is tall, thin.
Yeah, exactly. So, there was a picture, I remember crying to Eddie, and I'm just like, this is so bad. I don't even know which one's my sister.
When did she meet Tony Melisovis?
We never knew anything about Tony, obviously, never knew who he was, whatever. Like, Maddie we did, Tony we didn't. They went and lived in Warburton or somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere at the Snow.
Yes, and because Tony's mum lived up there, and she worked. They got clean, and they looked after Tony's mum. And then once again, Tony's mum dies of cancer and ends up tragedy. And where do they go? Straight back to, well, no, they were in Oakley, and then they went back to St Kilda.
But Tony was a recovering user as well, right? So the death of his mum.
I think he was a user the whole time, to be honest.
Right, okay.
Because Tracey worked. She worked in the store or something, and she got clean. She looked after the mother. I don't know about Tony.
Okay. But they're living with his mum, and then his mum dies, as you say, another tragedy.
Another tragedy, right? So and apparently she got close to her. Well, she looked after her, so yeah. And so then that's taken away from her again.
So what we know now is that on the night of the 20th of July, 2013, Tony, who's Tracey's partner, he has a swollen hand. He's got an infection in his hand. She takes him to the hospital, his thumb. So at that point, they were both living in the van. Tracey was also working in the van. And I guess the pattern was that when she had a client in there, Tony would hover, would hang around close by. But this night he was in hospital. She forced him to go to hospital over this hand, and he had to stay in overnight. And she said, well, I got to work. So she kissed him goodbye and she left.
Yeah, and then I think they texted, around 10:30, 11, I think, and she said it was it was winter, it was a cold night anyway. But
July on Grieve Street, freezing.
Yeah.
So Tony's texting in the morning, texting, she's not getting back to him. Finally, he gets back down there to the van and discovers Tracey.
This Ford O'Connor van was where Tracey Connelly lived and worked in St Kilda. It was also the scene of her brutal murder. The sex worker was last seen alive around 11:30 p.m. on Saturday, July 21, 2013. Around 1:51 a.m, police say Tracey got into her van parked on Grieve Street with an unknown male. Her murderer spent around 37 minutes inside the van before fleeing.
My question's always been, I'm sure the police have checked it out, but what time did he get released? Normally, I thought for a thumb they'd release him by 10 o'clock. And from what I gather, he didn't find it till 2 or 3. Well, what the hell are you doing in between that time? It's my question.
So when did you and how did you find out? Did they track you down, the police, or?
Oh, no. I'm living over here. I moved to the US in 97. So, and then mum and dad moved up north in 98. So by 2000, we were all out of Melbourne.
By 2013, you were well and truly established outside of Melbourne.
Yep. Billy's graduated school. The kids are all doing good. He's working for Apple. He's got a great job, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a smart fella. Like I said, just like her. So anyway, one of our friends down in Melbourne, the friend that she grew up with, the family friend, it came on the news. And she called my son, told him, because he's about 3 or 4 years older than Billy, told him, look, this is going on. And then my son had to tell my parents, go around and tell his grandparents, she's gone, once he verified it and all that.
Because it's on the news. And by then we did have the internet, so.
Yeah, exactly. So they called Victoria Police and said who they were and, blah, blah, blah. And that's how they did it. And then that's how, they flew back. Well, my stepdad, my mum didn't go. She was just too much for her. Well, she had what they call a broken heart syndrome. So when they got the call, she went to hospital, basically, because she had a heart attack. They call it broken heart syndrome. It's just like a heart attack. And so she was in hospital, and then they had the memorial and that. So, my stepdad went down, and that's when he did when they were appealing for, people to come forward. And he had to sit there next to Tony. And trust me, we all thought it was Tony. It was a very brave thing of him to do, to be able to sit there next to somebody and show compassion to him and all that, because, yet all the while thinking, well, where were you?
Tony Milicius says his love for his murdered partner, Tracey Connelly, is as strong as his determination to find her killer.
My love for Tracey is unrelenting. I, along with the police, will not stop until this animal responsible for this crime is caught and punished.
Today, he joined her father, Brian Connelly, to plead for public help to solve her murder. Mr Connelly says he never judged his daughter, but was always concerned.
You worry about your children all the way. We've already lost a son who was killed in while being a fireman here in Victoria. You worry about it.
Tell me, was there DNA? I really hate to be crass, but in the van, Tracey worked in the van, so I'm assuming there was a lot of DNA in the van.
Yeah, no, they had DNA because they ran it through Interpol. I mean, they ran it through Interpol, got nothing. You know, they had, what was it, the 3,000 people that came up to give their DNA and all that, her clients, anybody who was in that area, whatever. Like, they had such a really good response to that, just to clear their name. And I think, kudos to those people.
And surely they checked Tony's DNA and didn't match, right?
Yeah, but he was in hospital.
Now, Tony has since died, hasn't he?
Tony had passed away about 2 years after. Drug overdose.
Well, and also just to give context to Tony, again, I felt like I'd known a lot of blokes like Tony over the journey. And just to clarify, they were a couple. They were both heroin addicts, but Tracey made the money for both of them. Now, obviously that scenario brings up emotions in most of us, I think. And I met a lot of blokes like that, and a lot of them were lovely and charming, and the girls swore it was worth it, and it all worked out in the end because they took care of them and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, that's the situation your family is confronted with, that Tracey's been, I'm sorry to say, beaten to death in this van that she lives in. He lives in there with her and he doesn't work. He's never worked, and his job, in inverted commas, is to sit outside in the shadows and watch who comes and goes from the van.
Yep, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know she loved him. She obviously did. And I get it, I mean, the abandonment for her must have been pretty bad. We didn't mean to. Obviously, it wasn't intentional, but she had to have felt abandoned at some point.
And also, he's nothing but accepting because, I mean, he's taking the money, he's all those things. So, yeah, he's nothing but accepting, and it doesn't suit him to try and help Tracey improve her life or find you guys or...
No, exactly. And the thing was, though, which is crazy because, like I said earlier, we never pressured her. We knew we couldn't.
But actually, the pressure in her life is from herself and Tony. And whoever this partner was, doesn't have to be him personally, but when there's another person sitting next to you saying, oh, babe, I'm sick, I'm going to get sick, I can't take it. And it's your responsibility to prevent that from happening. That's the situation she was living in.
Yeah, and I think she had a sense of family, obviously, with Gatehouse and her community. We learned that from, her memorials, and that just the people that turned out was phenomenal. Like, that blew us away more than anything else.
They came in their hundreds to remember a woman whose life ended in violence. A candlelit vigil was held in the cold night on Thursday for murdered sex worker Tracey Connelly. While some knew her, many others didn't. And as well as honouring Tracey, they gathered in solidarity denouncing violence against women. The 40-year-old was found dead in the van she shared with her boyfriend, parked on Greve Street in St Kilda on July 21.
My brother, my oldest brother, he delivered the, eulogy, whatever the speech was at that. Yeah, he went, my stepdad, Billy went, but he didn't want to have anything to do with being in the spotlight but he was there. He was there for it. I think once he saw and felt the output of love that she had, I really think that brought him a lot of peace within himself to know, okay, she's been gone, but look at all these people. Like, you can't deny it.
Yeah, there were a lot of people, and there was a memorial at the Gatehouse and all that kind of stuff, but it was very much within the community of, St Kilda, of that area of St Kilda and that lifestyle. I feel like we can't talk about Tracey without talking about Jill Maher. Jill Maher was murdered less than a year earlier.
On September 21, security cameras capture Bailey and his girlfriend at a city bar. He goes home but heads out again, this time to Brunswick, where he's filmed on Sydney Road. He approaches Jill moments before he rapes and strangles her in a nearby alleyway.
Tens of thousands of people marched in the streets after Jill was murdered, demanding action, demanding safety for women, changes to parole. But it was actually Jill's husband, Tom, who then made the comment a year later, where's the march for Tracey Connelly? Because the community's reaction, the media's reaction, everything was different.
Yeah, everything in the media, sex worker. And that really, I think, really crushed my parents.
There was a lot of victim blaming, wasn't there? I mean, with Jill, we all thought, oh, shit, I could very easily have been the woman walking home a few blocks from being out with workmates and run into this terrible man. Whereas with Tracey, we can't relate to her.
Yep.
We're like, I would never be in a van, sleeping in a van on Greaves Street in St Kilda.
Yep. No, she asked for it. I've seen all those comments.
Mm.
She was more open to having that happen, sadly. But that doesn't discount that she deserved any of that.
No.
She didn't deserve it, period.
No, no one deserves that.
Just because she chose the path of addiction and where addiction led her to a sex worker doesn't mean, she never did anything to deserve it.
I think the thing about it is that the girls and boys who work there or, work in this environment understand the danger.
She was pretty leery and wary because I knew things that happened. Like she about got run over. I remember once they tried to run her and another girl over, and there were times I'm sure she got locked in cars and things like that. So she was always very wary.
Well, Adrian Bailey, who murdered Jill Maher, he had been raping and assaulting sex workers for years, savagely. And I'm not going to say got away with it, but certainly from my perspective, I don't think that he was penalised to the extent that he could have and should have been, and then he was out to murder Jill Maher.
One thing I did find out, which it gives me a bit of solace, that he stabbed her through her eye and it severed her spinal cord. So the first stab literally went through her eye and went across and severed her spinal cord. So even though she was alive for a few more minutes while the attack was on, she didn't feel anything. It sounds awful, but I take a little bit of solace that so she didn't feel any of that pain, and that came from the coroner, that she didn't feel anything. Gatehouse, they organised her funeral because Tony was next to kin at that point. So we had no say. Mum and Brian had no say. We were, even though we were family, he was considered the next dog. But literally the day of the funeral, Tony called my stepdad and said, well, if you want to have her, like he was done. He said, well, I don't want her, but I don't know what to do with her body. Do you want her, this and that?
Oh.
Yeah. So Mum said, of course we said, well, cremate her, And they got her cremated, and she came to us in an Australia Post box one sunny day. Yeah, that was pretty weird. So then we had our own little memorial for her up there.
Mm.
We all got together and just, said a few things. And so now she's buried up there. At least we can go see her. And like we said, she finally came home.
Yeah. Is your mum still living?
Yes.
God, how did she recover from her broken heart?
Hasn't. Because we lost Billy too.
No.
Before COVID, yeah. So he must have died around 2018, 2019.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And he was living with my parents, had been for nearly 2 years. And he was super happy. He was living with the people he loved the most. And his boyfriend was living with him, and everybody's getting along. And yeah, he just passed away suddenly. And I think it was drugs. Like, we never did a thing, but I knew he was a functioning addict. I mean, he'd had problems and all that beforehand. So basically an ambulance rocked up one night to her house once again because his partner had called. They were in the bedroom, the ambulance went in and they took his partner, thought he was having a heart attack or something, took his partner, and then the cops showed up and Mum was like, well, what's going on? And they said, well, you had 2 boys in there and one's alive and one isn't.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was not good. Not good. So, Mum's calling me, so I'm calling my son and my nephew raced over, and I mean raced, because this is like, I never know what time, some crazy time of night. 2 boys raced over there, and I stayed on the phone with Mum. The cops were really good. They stayed in the house too. They just sat there with them until somebody came, So then my boys took my parents out while they got Billy's body out of the room, and yeah, it was not a good scene. They were definitely functioning adults. Just in the cleanup of that room was ungodly. Ungodly. And the saddest part is that we took Tracey's ashes And we sat them in Billy's lap one day and sort of said, hey, here's a reality check. You know, you don't want, and even with all of that, addiction comes into it again. Yeah, and then he was a good kid. He was captain of his school, straight A student, smart as smart could be, just like his mum.
Yeah.
Looked like her, talked like her, like you could close your eyes and think you were talking to Tracey. Like same inflection in his voice, the way they said things, how they expressed themselves even. It was hilarious.
Wow.
And yet they never met in that respect. We never lied to him. And so he knew from a very early age that his parents, mental health was not good. And he was the same way. He didn't judge her. He was just like, oh, I wish it'd be nice to get to know her, of course, as he got older. And the tragic thing, I think, is as he got older, she did look for him on Facebook. So we are a part Asian family. Tracey is like the whitest of the family. It was a family joke, you know what I mean? She's like nearly 6 foot, this big, beautiful, tall girl, She's like beautiful cream skin, peaches and cream skin. I mean, she's just gorgeous. So Billy, of course, is very much like her. He's tall, wide-skinned, we know, and all that. Well, he changed his name on Facebook to Birry, Birry.
Right.
So it wasn't under his real name of Billy Connelly. So when she was looking for him on Facebook, it wouldn't come up because she had his first name wrong. And he was pretty bummed. He was like, what a mischance, He said, what? Because he was doing the same thing, trying to look for her.
Tracey had another baby, didn't she, at some point? And
yes, she did.
He was adopted.
The best part of this whole story is we met up about 2 years ago.
You did? Oh, wow.
Yep. Met up at my mum's. So we are in contact. We do have a relationship with him.
Oh, that is such good news after everything you've told us. I needed that.
Yeah, fabulous kid. It was very strange to meet him because, he called up and we're all breaking down and I was just like, I just have to touch you. And he was like, okay. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. And he again, very similar.
Wow.
The similarities are insane. Yep, the way he talks. You can close your eyes and you can hear Billy and her, you know what I mean? Some of his looks are the same and he's a great kid. That was an adoption that Tracey did get to be part of.
Oh, okay.
She got to meet the parents. So she had a lot more input in that, which is really good, I think, for her.
Oh, yeah. It has to be better for everyone and no doubt for him as well. He didn't have the first 12 months that Billy had.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the diamond in that is that, we lost 2, but we found 1.
When and how did he find out about everything?
Parents never lied to him. Parents always told him.
He knew about Tracey when it happened and...
Yep.
Wow.
He was at camp or something and so they went up there and as a family and told him and dealt with it as a family. And
aren't they amazing?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, those parents are just amaze me.
So her murder remains open, an open case investigation at the moment. What do police tell you?
They don't, there's not much they can. My biggest thing of doing this whole podcast and that is there's a CC Moore and a company called Paramount over here. CC Moore is the pioneer of reverse genealogy in that she takes DNA and she works from grandparents down. And she solved hundreds of cold cases from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. She's been in some very high-profile cases where all they had was DNA. And from her work, that's how she's found them.
So what are you hoping with CC Moore?
Well, I'm hoping we can get Victoria Police. She only deals with law enforcement. She does not deal with the general public. So law enforcement have to reach out to her.
Right.
And put their case to her and say, look, we have a case, here it is. And then she decides if she wants to do it or not. So it really is to get the push. It's Parabon, Parabon, if anybody wants to look her up. CC Moore, I don't know, write to your local Victoria Police guy or something. It's something that I think it's an email and it's not going to cost a lot. Yet it's a door that maybe if it's open can really blow it open. It's the only thing I can think of left to do, to push because They've done everything they can, really, unless somebody knows. I know that deep in my heart. Somebody knows more than what they're saying.
And it's encouraging for you to say, though, that you're happy with the work that Victoria Police have done, because most people, I'm sure this suspicion has crept into my own mind over the journey, that because of Tracey's lifestyle, maybe they didn't try as hard, or, but you don't feel that.
No, I think the media, that was more a media thing. They've treated my parents really well. I know that, with the correspondence and all that. What else can you do? It was such a bizarre thing. And I think I've resigned myself to the fact. I don't know about the rest of the family, but even if we were to get justice for her, I don't think we'll ever get the why, which I don't think I'll get until I meet her, on the other side. I'm sure she'll tell me everything then, but at least to get justice and to, who knows what this person has done.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, if this person's still alive and on the streets, that's not a positive outcome for anybody. It was a very violent attack, which makes you think that whomever perpetrated it is obviously a very violent offender.
Right, but it wasn't Tony. Yeah, but I don't know if Tony maybe he owed somebody money. It's like a payback, for want of a better word. That was my first impression, was, she got payback. What did he do? But to attack her that way, I don't think it was robbery. I think it was premeditated. I think they were there with a purpose, whether it was just a Looney Tooney. But to pick her on that night, the one night that Tony's not there, and to pick Tracey, I think it was just a ruse to take her bag and that, just to make it look like a robbery. But really, who robs a sex worker? Come on, people.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine there'd be a lot of money flying around.
You're in St Kilda. Yeah, come on. You know they're addicted. They're sex workers. But I think it was premeditated and she was targeted. I really do. At least if we could find the person and bring them justice in our society, justice. And once again, I'd like to put it out there, the truth will set you free. So if you do know something, people, just come forward. It's never too late. It's never too late, ever. Just do the right thing, and, something little that you think might not be a whole lot could be something that blows at what, it's all the little things. Little things add up to a big thing, because dude is still out. I'm assuming it's a man, but he's still out there. He could be doing all sorts of things that you just don't know about, that just didn't make the news.
Well, yes, obviously, I really hope you find something out. And it's a crime that I never stop thinking about. I never stop thinking about Tracey Connelly. And it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing all of that background about Tracey and all of who she was and who you guys are.
She's at peace now, and that's all that matters. She's at peace. She's buried with her son. So they're back together, and Mum will be buried up there. So, she'll be buried she'll have family around her. We have a little, section there. And it's a beautiful where they're both buried. It's like there's water and it's just gorgeous. It's a really, really nice place. Very tranquil. So they're both there and they're back together.
Thank you to our guest today, Jean. For more about the $1 million reward for information regarding Tracey Connelly's death, you can navigate to the cold case page on Victoria Police's website or check the show notes for a link. If you need support after listening to this podcast, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14 or contact 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737 732 or 1800respect.org.au. Indigenous Australians can contact 13 Yarn on 13 92 76 or 13yarn.org.au.
The producers of this podcast recognise the traditional owners of the land on which it's recorded. They pay respect to the Aboriginal elders past, present and those emerging.